There is a country where the sun rises over the Atlantic and sets behind the Andes, where a single nation stretches from tropical jungle to frozen glacier, where dinner begins at 10 at night and the conversation doesn't stop until long after midnight. This is Argentina. You might think you know it. Tango, football, a good steak, perhaps a bottle of Malbec, but to live here is something else entirely. To live here is to understand that time bends differently, that a simple cup of mate shared between strangers can become an hour-long ritual, that the land itself, from the flat, endless Pampas to the jagged spine of the Andes, shapes not just how people work and eat, but how they love, how they endure, and how they find joy even when the ground beneath them keeps shifting. In Buenos Aires, a city of nearly 3 million souls, the architecture whispers of Paris and Madrid, but the rhythm is unmistakably South American. Cafes spill onto wide boulevards. Couples dance tango on street corners in San Telmo. The air smells of jasmine in spring and grilled beef in every season. But Buenos Aires is only the beginning. Argentina is vast, the 8th largest country on Earth, and to understand what it means to live here, you have to leave the capital behind. You have to climb into the Andes, cross the Pampas, follow the Paraná River, north to the jungle, and venture south, where the wind howls across Patagonia and the glaciers carve into turquoise lakes. This is not a travel guide. This is a day in the life of an entire nation, from sunrise to deep into the night, across every region, every season, every contradiction. 10 chapters, 1 story. The story of how people actually live in Argentina, and why, despite everything, they stay. Argentina does not feel like one country. It feels like several, stitched together by history and a shared language, but otherwise completely distinct. Start in the northwest, in the province of Jujuy, where the Quebrada de Humahuaca carves a narrow valley through mountains, painted in 7 shades of red, orange, and purple. The air is thin here. The altitude exceeds 3,000 meters. Indigenous communities have lived in these highlands for centuries, tending llamas and growing quinoa on terrace slopes that predate the Spanish arrival. The silence at dawn, before the sun crests the mountains, is almost sacred. Travel east and the world transforms. In the province of Misiones, on the border with Brazil, sits one of the most extraordinary sights on the continent. Iguazú Falls, 275 waterfalls thundering over a horseshoe-shaped cliff surrounded by dense subtropical jungle. The air is thick with humidity and the sound of water is constant, overwhelming. The mist rises in great columns, visible for miles. Living near Iguazú means living with the roar of the planet itself. Now move south and west, into the flat heartland of Argentina, the Pampas. This is what most people picture when they imagine the country. An ocean of grass stretching to every horizon, broken only by the occasional ombu tree and the silhouette of a lone gaucho on horseback. The province of Buenos Aires, along with parts of La Pampa and Córdoba, sits on some of the richest agricultural soil in the world. The wind moves through the grass in waves. The sky here is so vast, it can feel disorienting. You understand why early settlers called this place the Pampa, a Quechua word, meaning open space, or plain without trees. Further west, the Andes rise abruptly from the plains. Mendoza sits at the foot of these mountains, a desert city made green by irrigation canals dug centuries ago. Aconcagua, the highest peak in the Americas at nearly 7,000 meters, towers over the province, snow-capped even in summer. The contrast is jarring. Vineyards and olive groves thriving in what would otherwise be an arid wasteland, all because of meltwater flowing down from the mountains. And then there is Patagonia. If the Pampas is Argentina's heart, Patagonia is its restless soul. This is a land of wind and stone and ice. In Bariloche, in the Lake District of Rio Negro province, the landscape looks borrowed from Switzerland. Alpine forests, crystalline lakes, chocolate shops, in a town that feels transplanted from the Alps. But travel further south, to Santa Cruz province, and you reach El Calafate, the gateway to the Perito Moreno glacier. This wall of ice rises 70 meters above the water and stretches 5 kilometers wide. It groans, it cracks. Chunks of ice the size of buildings carve into Lake Argentino with a sound like thunder. Further still, at the very bottom of the continent, lies Ushuaia in Tierra del Fuego, the southernmost city on Earth. Here, the Andes meet the sea. The weather can shift 4 times in an hour. The locals call it the end of the world, the beginning of everything. To live in Ushuaia is to live at the edge of human habitation, where the next stop south is Antarctica. This is the geography of Argentina, a country of extremes, where the temperature can reach 45 degrees Celsius in the northern Chaco and drop to 20 below in the Patagonian winter. A country where you can stand in a jungle one day, a desert the next, and an ice field the day after. The land shapes everything that follows: how people build their homes, what they put on their plates, and how they move through their days. In Argentina, the day does not begin with a rush. In Buenos Aires, the morning starts gently. Around 7 or 8, the city stirs. Cafe windows glow along Avenida Santa Fe and through the cobblestone streets of Palermo. The first order of the day is not a meeting or an email. It is a cortado, a small, strong coffee, served with a splash of milk, accompanied by a media luna, a small sweet croissant. This is not a grab-and-go culture. Even in the capital, people sit. They read the newspaper. They talk to the waiter by name. Breakfast is light. The big meal comes later, much later. In Argentina, lunch happens around 1 or 2 in the afternoon. But the real anchor of the day is dinner, which rarely begins before 9 at night and often stretches past 11. Restaurants in Buenos Aires neighborhoods like Recoleta and Puerto Madero don't fill until after 9:30, and on weekends, families might sit down at 10 or even later. Visitors from other countries find this disorienting. Argentines find it natural. The rhythm is different outside the capital. In Córdoba, the country's second city, university students fill the plazas in the afternoon, drinking mate from shared gourds, passing the metal straw back and forth. The pace is slower than Buenos Aires, more relaxed, but still unmistakably urban. In smaller towns like Cafayate in Salta province, the day revolves around the sun. Shops close for siesta between 1 and 5 in the afternoon. The streets go quiet. Then, as the heat of the day fades, life returns. Children play in the plaza. Neighbors pull chairs onto the sidewalk. The town comes alive again at dusk. One thing binds daily life across Argentina: the ritual of mate. This is more than a drink. It is a social act, a punctuation mark in the day. The dried leaves of yerba mate are packed into a hollowed gourd. Hot water is poured in, never boiling, and the infusion is sipped through a metal straw called a bombilla. It is bitter, earthy, and consumed everywhere. In offices, on construction sites, in parks, on buses, at football matches. The mate is passed around. Everyone drinks from the same straw. It is an act of trust, of community, of shared time. To refuse mate when offered is to refuse connection. In Argentina, time is not rigid. Meetings start late. Social visits stretch longer than planned. The concept of ahora, now, might mean in 10 minutes or in an hour. This can frustrate outsiders raised on punctuality, but it reflects a deeper cultural priority. The relationship matters more than the schedule. The person in front of you matters more than the next appointment. The Argentine home is not a fortress, it is a gathering place. In the residential neighborhoods of Rosario, Argentina's third largest city, straddling the Paraná River, family life revolves around the parrilla, the grill. Nearly every home with outdoor space has one, even if it's just a small brick structure on a balcony. Sunday is sacred. Extended family gathers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. The asado, the Argentine barbecue, is not just a meal. It is the institution around which family identity is built. It can last 6 hours. Homes themselves vary dramatically across the country. In the northern provinces, like Tucumán and Jujuy, traditional adobe houses with thick walls keep interiors cool during scorching summers. In Patagonian towns like El Bolsón, wooden cabins with steep roofs shed the heavy winter snow. In Buenos Aires, the classic housing is the PH, a long, narrow house stretching back from the street, often shared by multiple generations of the same family, with a central courtyard where children play and clothes dry in the sun. The concept of family in Argentina extends beyond blood. Friends become tios, aunts and uncles, to children they are not related to. Neighbors are pulled into celebrations. The circle is wide and porous. This is a culture where it is normal for adult children to live with their parents well into their 20s and sometimes 30s, not out of economic necessity alone, but because family closeness is a value in itself. The idea of moving out at 18, common in some Western countries, feels cold and strange to many Argentine families. In the wine country around Mendoza, family often means the family business. Vineyards pass down through 3 or 4 generations. Children grow up knowing the rhythms of harvest. February and March, when the grapes are picked by hand and the whole region hums with activity. The bodega, the winery, becomes an extension of the home. Sunday lunch takes place at a long table between the oak barrels. And in the small towns of the Pampas, in provinces like Buenos Aires and Santa Fe, the estancia, the traditional ranch, still anchors family life for some. These are not just farms, they are entire worlds. A single estancia might cover thousands of hectares, with the main house, workers' quarters, stables, and a small chapel all within its boundaries. The gauchos who work the land often live on the estancia with their families, maintaining a way of life that has existed for centuries. If you want to understand Argentina, sit at its table. Let us begin with the asado, because everything in Argentine food culture begins and ends here. In Buenos Aires, the smell of burning charcoal drifts through neighborhoods every Sunday afternoon. The parrillero, the grill master, is a figure of quiet authority. He tends the fire for hours, adjusting the height of the grill, turning the meat at precisely the right moment. The cuts are specific: vacío, the flank; matambre, a thin cut from between the skin and ribs; chorizo sausages, morcilla blood sausage, and provoletta, a wheel of provolone cheese grilled until it bubbles and browns. Vegetables are an afterthought if they appear at all. This is a celebration of beef, and Argentina takes its beef seriously. But Argentina's food map is far richer than asado alone. Travel to Salta in the northwest, and you find empanadas salteñas, small baked pastries filled with spiced beef, potato, and hard-boiled egg, cut into small cubes and seasoned with cumin and paprika. They are smaller and juicier than their cousins in Buenos Aires. Every region has its empanada, and locals will argue passionately about which is best. In Mendoza, food revolves around wine. Malbec is the flagship, a grape originally from France that found its true home in the high-altitude vineyards at the foot of the Andes. The intense sunlight and cool nights produce a wine of deep color and velvety texture. But the food that accompanies it is equally important. Picadas of local cheeses and cured meats, slow-cooked stews like carbonada, and fresh trout from the mountain streams. In Patagonia, around Bariloche, the culinary tradition shifts toward the European immigrant influences that shaped the region. Chocolate shops line the main street, a legacy of Swiss and German settlers. Smoked wild boar and venison appear on menus. And the Argentine fondness for Italian food, pizza, pasta, Milanese, is visible everywhere, a reminder that more than half of Argentines have Italian ancestry. And then there is dulce de leche. This caramelized milk spread is a national obsession. It goes on toast at breakfast. It fills facturas, the sweet pastries sold in every bakery. It is layered between cookies to make alfajores, the iconic Argentine sweet sold in kiosks and bakeries from Jujuy to Ushuaia. The alfajor is more than a confection. It is a unifying symbol, a taste of childhood, a reminder that even in a country of vast distances, some things are shared by all. And always, always, there is mate. Walk through any park in Rosario on a Sunday afternoon, and you will see groups of friends sitting in circles on the grass, a thermos of hot water at the center, the mate gourd passing from hand to hand. This is culture at its most fundamental, not performed for tourists, not packaged for export, but lived every day. Argentina's relationship with its economy is complicated. This is a country of immense natural wealth, fertile soil, mineral reserves, energy resources, a highly educated workforce that has spent decades wrestling with inflation, currency instability, and cycles of boom and bust. To work in Argentina is to live with a certain unpredictability. People check the dollar exchange rate the way others check the weather. In Buenos Aires, the financial and professional heart of the country, the morning commute through the microcentro is dense with office workers. The Puerto Madero district, once abandoned docklands, now gleams with glass towers housing multinational corporations, law firms, and tech companies. Argentina has a strong professional class. Excellent universities produce skilled doctors, engineers, and architects who compete on the global stage. In Córdoba, the economy has a different character. This city has become a technology hub, sometimes called Argentina's Silicon Valley. Startups operate out of converted warehouses. Young programmers work remotely for companies in the United States and Europe, earning in dollars while living in pesos, a strategy that has become a lifeline for many in an economy where local wages struggle to keep pace. Agriculture remains the backbone of the country's export economy. In the province of Santa Fe, the port city of Rosario is the gateway for the vast soybean harvest that rolls in from the Pampas. Argentina is one of the world's largest exporters of soy products, along with corn, wheat, and beef. The trucks line up for miles during harvest season. These commodity exports generate the foreign currency the country desperately needs, but they also tie Argentina's fortunes to global markets it cannot control. tourism is another pillar. In the far south, the town of El Calafate exists almost entirely because of the Perito Moreno Glacier. Hotels, restaurants, tour companies, an entire local economy built around a single natural wonder. The same is true in Puerto Iguazú, where the falls draw visitors from every continent, and in the wine regions of Mendoza, wine tourism has transformed small rural towns into destinations where visitors cycle between vineyards and finish the day with a tasting menu overlooking the Andes. Yet the informal economy is everywhere. Street vendors in Buenos Aires selling everything from socks to empanadas, artisans at weekend ferias in San Telmo and Mataderos, the cartoneros who collect recyclable materials from the streets at night, loading their carts with cardboard and plastic to sell by weight. These are not signs of a broken society, they are signs of resilience. Argentines find ways, they adapt. They have always had to. Argentines live their lives in public. The café is the living room of the nation. In Buenos Aires, the historic Café Tortoni on Avenida de Mayo has served coffee since 1858. Its marble tables and stained glass have hosted writers like Borges and Cortázar. But you do not need to go to a famous café to see Argentine social life at work. Any corner café, any neighborhood bar, in any city will show you the same thing. People sitting for hours over a single coffee, talking, arguing about football, discussing politics, sharing stories. The drink is almost incidental. The company is the point. Football is not just a sport here, it is a tribal identity. In Buenos Aires, the rivalry between Boca Juniors and River Plate divides families. The stadium in La Boca, La Bombonera, trembles when the crowd jumps in unison. In Rosario, the same intensity surrounds Newell's Old Boys and Rosario Central. To attend a match is to participate in something primal. The chants, the flags, the smoke from flares, it is theater as much as sport. Then there is tango. Born in the working-class neighborhoods of Buenos Aires and Montevideo in the late 19th century, tango is Argentina's most famous cultural export, but it is not a museum piece. In the milongas, tango dance halls of neighborhoods like San Telmo and Almagro, people of all ages gather to dance. Young couples in jeans dance beside older couples who have been dancing together for 50 years. The music is melancholic, full of longing. The bandoneon, a German accordion that became tango's signature instrument, seems to breathe with human emotion. Beyond the cities, tradition takes different forms. In San Antonio de Areco, a small town in the province of Buenos Aires, the Dia de la Tradición celebrates gaucho culture every November. Riders in traditional dress, bombachas, wide trousers, and ponchos parade through the streets on horseback. There are displays of horsemanship, folk music, and asado competitions. This is not nostalgia performed for tourists. This is a living culture, maintained by families who still work cattle on horseback and pass down skills from father to son, mother to daughter. In the north, in Jujuy and Salta, indigenous traditions remain strong. The Pachamama ceremony, honoring Mother Earth, is observed in August. Offerings of food, coca leaves, and drink are buried in the ground. And in Gualeguaychú in Entre Rios province, Carnival transforms the city every summer into a riot of color, music, and dance. Argentina's largest carnival, rivaling Brazil's in spectacle, if not in fame. No country is without its shadows, and Argentina's shadows are long. The most persistent challenge is economic. Generations of Argentines have lived through cycles of inflation that erode savings, devalue salaries, and make long-term planning feel impossible. The psychological toll is deep. There is a word that gets used often: cansancio, weariness, the feeling of running hard and staying in the same place. In Buenos Aires, the economic pressure is visible in ways both obvious and subtle. The growing number of people sleeping in doorways, the inflation of prices that change week to week, sometimes day to day. The young professionals with university degrees who work multiple jobs and still live with their parents because rent is out of reach. In parts of the Gran Buenos Aires conurbation, the sprawling belt of neighborhoods surrounding the capital, poverty rates run high and access to basic services can be unreliable. In the provinces, different challenges emerge. In the northern regions, such as parts of Chaco and Formosa, rural poverty persists alongside limited infrastructure. In Patagonia, isolation is the challenge. Villages like El Chaltén, surrounded by some of the most spectacular mountains on Earth, are hundreds of kilometers from the nearest hospital. A medical emergency in winter, when roads are icy and flights are grounded, becomes dangerous. Argentina also grapples with a political landscape that can feel exhausting. Deep divisions run through families and friendships. The country has swung between political extremes, and the tension between federal power, concentrated in Buenos Aires, and the needs of distant provinces remains unresolved. And yet, and this is the crucial thing about Argentina, people do not meet these challenges with despair. They meet them with humor, with community, with the quiet habit of mutual aid that runs through Argentine society from the family unit outward. Neighbors help neighbors. When the economy crashes, informal networks activate: truck, barter clubs, community kitchens. These are not new inventions. They are the reflexes of a society that has learned over decades that the only reliable safety net is each other. Argentina lives in two time signatures at once. In Buenos Aires, the Palermo Hollywood district pulses with the energy of a global creative capital. Co-working spaces fill with freelancers and entrepreneurs. Specialty coffee shops serve pour-overs to a generation that grew up drinking instant coffee at their grandmother's tables. Fitness culture has arrived: gyms, yoga studios, running clubs along the ecological reserve. The city has a thriving LGBTQ+ scene, a dynamic arts community, and a startup ecosystem that connects Argentine talent to the world. Buenos Aires legalized same-sex marriage in 2010, the first country in Latin America to do so, and the annual Pride March fills the streets with hundreds of thousands. Yet leave the capital and drive 3 hours into the Pampas, and you enter a world where time moves differently. In the estancias around the town of San Antonio de Areco, gauchos still rise before dawn to saddle their horses. The work of cattle ranching has not fundamentally changed in 100 years. The skills, roping, branding, reading weather from the sky, navigating by instinct across trackless grassland, are transmitted orally, father to son. A gaucho might carry a smartphone in his saddlebag, but he still trusts the behavior of birds to tell him when a storm is coming. This duality exists within regions, even within families. In Mendoza, a young winemaker might use satellite imagery and soil sensors to manage her vineyard, then go home for Sunday lunch, where her grandmother serves recipes unchanged since great-grandparents arrived from Italy. In Salta, indigenous communities maintain weaving traditions using techniques that predate the Inca, while their children attend university and post on Instagram. The tension between old and new is not always comfortable. Some traditions are fading. Younger generations leave small towns for the cities. The gaucho way of life contracts. Indigenous languages lose speakers. But there is also a growing movement to preserve and reclaim. Folk music festivals draw massive crowds. Young people in the cities are rediscovering mate culture with artisanal yerbas and handcrafted gourds. Tango schools in Buenos Aires fill with students from around the world, and, perhaps more significantly, with young Argentines who had never danced before. Argentina is not choosing between past and future. It is trying, like many places, to hold both at once. Whether it succeeds will define the next chapter of the national story. So why do they stay? This is the question that outsiders ask most often. With the economic instability, the political chaos, the inflation that devours savings, why not leave? And many do. Argentina has a large diaspora, particularly in Spain, Italy, the United States, and Israel. Young professionals with EU passports, common among those of Italian and Spanish descent, often spend a few years abroad. But the vast majority stay, and those who leave often come back. Ask an Argentine why, and the answers are rarely economic. They are emotional. They stay for the people, for a culture where a stranger will spend 20 minutes giving you directions, then walk you to your destination personally, where a conversation with a taxi driver becomes a therapy session, where friends who have known each other since childhood still gather every Sunday for asado, and anyone new who shows up is welcomed without hesitation. They stay for the land, the impossible beauty of it, the way the light falls on the Andes at sunset in Bariloche, turning the mountains pink and gold, the silence of the Pampas at midday, when the only sound is the wind in the grass and the distant lowing of cattle, the thunder of Iguazú, the blue-white mass of Perito Moreno, the desert colors of the Quebrada de Humahuaca. A person can spend a lifetime exploring Argentina and never finish. They stay for the small pleasures, the first sip of mate in the morning, the smell of jasmine in a Buenos Aires spring, the chaos and beauty of a football stadium in full voice, the taste of a perfect empanada from a roadside stand in Salta, the feeling of dancing tango at 3 in the morning in a dimly lit milonga where time seems to stop. And they stay because Argentina has given them something rare: resilience, the understanding that life is unpredictable, that plans will be disrupted, that the only certainty is uncertainty, and that this is okay. That joy does not require stability. That community, family, and a good asado on a Sunday afternoon can carry you through almost anything. There is a phrase that gets used, La Argentina. Not just the name of the country, but a feeling, a way of being. It is hard to translate, but if you have spent time here, you understand it. It is the ability to laugh during a crisis, to find beauty in precarity, to hold on to warmth and connection, even when everything else is falling apart. Argentina is not an easy place to live. It never has been. It demands patience and creativity and a certain tolerance for chaos. But for those who call it home, the rewards are immeasurable. Because to live in Argentina is to be fully alive. It is to feel everything, the highs and the lows, the beauty and the struggle, with an intensity that softer, more predictable countries cannot match. And that, in the end, is why they stay. If you could wake up tomorrow in one place in Argentina, the streets of Buenos Aires, the vineyards of Mendoza, the mountains of Patagonia, or the falls of Iguazú, where would it be? One word below.